Hello, this is Flora Jambor joining in from Planet Budapest, where with key speakers of the event, we are talking about the topics of sustainability. And these experts play a huge role in shaping the world and the environment. So now we will have a little chat with them. Come with us. Here I have with me Alberto Di-Leo, General Manager of Hungary and the Adriatic region, and the ice cream lead of Eastern Europe of the Unilever Company. Mr. Di-Leo, welcome and thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Good afternoon and many thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
As the regional executive of the Unilever, what do you think would be the right statement? Growth and sustainability, or growth or sustainability?
So I would actually say growth through sustainability. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm a firm believer that all big multinational corporations must follow the journey through sustainability. And I believe that sustainability can also be an opportunity for growth. So rather than having to choose between one or the other, I definitely think the two can go together, and that actually sustainability can help grow our company.
I'm glad that you've mentioned this, because I just wanted to quote you from a previous statement where you said the same. But if that's true, then how can you explain the fact that big companies have only been striving for sustainable solutions in the last decade and not before? What explains that process?
Yeah, so no, listen, I think first, it's true that Unilever has been amongst the first. So we've been talking about sustainability for more than 10 years. We were amongst the first to come out with the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan, and that's more than 10 years old. And I think the reason why is because first, there is no other option, right? Because if you look at the damages that climate change is producing around the world, at the end, this will impact companies as well. And then secondly, also because I believe consumers, people, are more and more open, are more and more eager to buy products from sustainable companies and from sustainable brands, especially if they play it in an authentic and real way. Other companies, what can I say? I think there is growing momentum, yeah? If you look at how many companies were at COP26 versus previous organizations, how many companies are represented today in Planet Budapest, I think there is momentum, and I think we should build on that momentum.
I'll go back to the issue of consumer behavior, because I think that's a very important part. But let's just talk a little bit about a concept that is gaining more and more popularity nowadays, the concept of circular economy. What does this term mean for your company, and what aspects do you try to embed in your company's behavior? What are the circular economic aspects and features?
So it's definitely a very important issue, and one that we must accelerate. I would say three things. So first of all, it's focus around renewable energy sources. And Unilever is now in all of our factories around the world, and there's many factories of Unilevers in the world. We use 100% renewable or reusable energy. Hungary is no exception, and actually all our three factories here use renewable energy. And actually, I think what's interesting about that is the fact that our supplier is telling us that we were amongst the first to ask for it, but now more and more companies are starting to ask for the same. The second aspect of the circular economy, which is important, is around our commitments on plastic. Yeah, so plastic is definitely useful because it carries the products from the shops to people's homes, but we have a responsibility to reduce the impact that we have when it comes to plastic. And there, what are we doing about it? First, we must use more recycled plastic, yeah, so technically called PCR. Mm-hmm. And we made also a commitment to reduce by 50% how much virgin plastic that we use. There are brands like Dove, for example, that are already 100% recycled plastic. And then, also finding ways to deliver products in pouches, different delivery systems that can cut out the amount of plastic that we use. So that's number two. Number three is around deforestation. which is a huge problem that we must be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And actually, an interesting project, which is a partnership between Google and Google Earth and Unilever, gives us the opportunity to see in real time where the deforestation is happening. In areas of Indonesia, for example, where we source our palm oil. And that allows us to influence our suppliers of palm oil to stop deforestation. So really these three things, I would say, renewable energy, plastic, and putting an end to deforestation.
What about waste management? Because that is also something that adds to the ecological footprint of big companies. What do you think, or what solutions does Unilever use when it comes to waste management?
Absolutely. I mean, waste is an incredible problem. It's a monstrous problem. I was speaking about it today at Planet Budapest. If you think about it, we'll soon be 10 billion people on this planet. And 2 billion are already today obese. And 1 billion goes to sleep hungry every night. And in this reality, if you think that 1/3 of all the food which is produced gets lost or goes to waste, then you can start to see how big of an issue this is. So what are we doing about this? So Unilever has made a commitment to half the food waste in our direct operations. That's from factories to store. And initially we had committed to do that by 2030, and we've actually brought that commitment forward to 2025. At the same time, I think our responsibility does not end in our direct operations, because through our brands, we can actually influence consumer behavior. An example I'm very proud of is what Hellmann's is doing. Hellmann's is not so well known in Hungary, but it's a huge brand in the US and in the rest of Europe. They make primarily mayonnaise. And they have a campaign which is called Make Taste, Not Waste. And what the brand is trying to do is to encourage people to reutilize the food that they have not finished in a specific meal, and then use mayo to make exciting new dishes. I think this is really, really important to change also consumer behavior and not allow people to throw away good food. And then finally, with big topics like these, I also think we need help from youngsters, Generation Zs, because they can bring out of the box thinking, new ideas. So we've created a movement which is called the Waste Warriors. And it's young people from all around the world that come together and discuss different ways of tackling the food waste problem. So big problem, and we can be part of the solution.
Going back a little bit to consumer behavior, how do you think the demand for sustainable products have changed or have evolved over the last couple of years? And do you think that despite of constantly rising consumer prices, consumers would be still willing to opt for a more sustainable product? Or is there a limit where they would say that this is something they cannot afford?
So in general, every statistic that we see shows that consumers are far more interested in climate change than they were 5 to 10 years ago. Far more interested in issues around sustainability than they've ever been before. In fact, because climate change is affecting their daily lives, they see this every day, and they've realized how important that is. And I think consumers are also starting to prefer brands that talk about sustainability. I think what is really important is that you do it in a way which is authentic. Yeah, you cannot force fit these things into brands. So I think the Hellmann's example is a good example, because mayo fits with this idea of make taste and not waste. So you have to be authentic. Now, in terms of pricing, I think we need to find a way to not make consumers pay exorbitant prices for products which are more sustainable. By the way, I'm also convinced that initially there is a premium on things like PCR, yeah? But the more the whole industry shifts to PCR, the more the price of these more sustainable packaging is going to go down.
There is a solution used primarily in France. Two labels have been introduced there, the Nutri-Score and Eco-Score, that they are also planning to introduce an EU level. What do you think? Would that be of any effect if they would introduce that in Europe as well? Would that change consumer behavior, and would they actually care if there is a label saying that this is environmentally friendly or this is healthy for you?
Yeah, so Unilever believes that we must be able to provide to consumers the right information on the products. In general, I think on Nutri-Score, we just need to make sure that we're also able to communicate things like portion size. I mean, obviously, it makes a big difference if you're eating, a mini Magnum or a big Magnum. So I think there are tweaks that need to be made on Nutri-Score, but the principle of communicating calorie content of the products, the sugar content of the product in a clear way to consumers is something that I definitely endorse and support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Di-Leo, for being here, and hope to see you soon.
My pleasure, and thanks again for having me.
Thank you.